I've not heard of Mike.
What's up, man?
It's good to meet you though.
Good to meet you. How you doing?
Okay, so I wanted to have both of you guys on because one, I've seen some of your forecasts. I don't know what the fuck any of that means, Chaz. So I hope you can one screen share a little bit, or at least link me to something that I can go and click on.
Yeah, so let me link you.
But do it over Twitter DMs, because
Twitter
if you do it
DMs?
through
Okay.
Discord, I won't be able to click through, because Discord is currently showing you and also showing Central Committee. Dude, what happened to your hair? What the fuck?
No, dude, this hair is this
is that a wig? Like, what's going
no,
on?
This is a COVID-19 special right here, man.
But even the judge, like, looking at, I mean, we read through what the decision was, and this dude this dude's a relatively partisan judge. Even he was like, I want to help you out with this with this vote suppression, but I literally can't. Like, it's so insanely, overwhelmingly illegal that, like, I can't do it.
He said, "Why is this on my desk now?"
Yeah,
apparently.
Well, I mean, I one thing to say, the judge did in fact say that he would, and he directed the county to segregate all the drive-in votes that go on from now on. So you're right. He found it dispositive that the fact that they waited so long was why he wasn't going to rule for them. But they still might throw out a few thousand votes if they get the opportunity, if it matters. So I wouldn't, and also, like, the Supreme Court is extremely partisan, hard right. You never know what they might do, which we'll talk more about that when Pennsylvania comes up. Well, one question I have about Texas is the Hispanic vote. That's been a problem with Biden throughout most of the polling over the summer. He didn't have much Hispanic support, in the primary campaign. And, I was reading this week about concerns about, again, Hispanic turnout, especially in Florida and Texas. Has there been strong evidence that has resolved itself? People have kind of come around for Biden, or is that going to be a laggard that probably keeps Texas from flipping blue this time?
So, like I said, the Hispanic demographic is very tough to poll. If we release our federal forecast and we kind of put a link to a tweet by Matt Moan, who knows Texas very well. And he put how the crosstabs in the polling in Texas is all over the place. Trump winning it by a few points, Trump down by 40 points. It's just a very tough district very tough demographic to poll in Texas. So,
why is there mistrust for, like, pollsters? Is that why? Is it kind of like
no? I'm not sure why. I mean, I think at the end of the day, maybe there's a bit of a language barrier, but
I think there's a cultural barrier. We still, even in mainstream media, the way we look at Hispanic voters is like a monolith, like a monolithic voting block. When Florida fucking exists, where you have an outsized Cuban population that has historically voted Republican, and people on mainstream media still look at it and they're like, I don't understand why Biden is not doing so well with a Hispanic vote in Florida. It's like, yeah, no shit, they're not doing well with the Hispanic votes in Florida. They never have, with the exception of Barack Obama in 2008. And that was largely backed by a younger voter turnout of younger Cubans that ended up swinging the Cuban vote back over to the Democratic Party. But of course they're not a monolith. And older Latinos end up oftentimes voting for the social conservatism shtick. It works for some of them. And from what I understand at least, the younger Hispanic population is much more progressive than the average Democratic base voter. And I feel like they're not doing enough targeted outreach.
Well, I want to push back on the idea that it's hard to poll Hispanics. I mean, all you really need is people that speak Spanish, people that are aware of the community, that are members of the community. And I think one of the big knocks on the Biden campaign is the lack of the campaign. He's not doing the hard work of hiring local experts. He's not bringing in people who speak Spanish. He's not bringing in people to do that direct outreach. There's a reason why Bernie Sanders won Nevada by so much, is because he did bring those people in. And Biden is kind of, he's not doing voter registration. Hispanics are traditionally, especially in places like Texas, under-registered. Their votes are suppressed. They need things like direct voter contact. They need, voter protection. They need people that are familiar with the laws to give people that have mixed status homes the confidence to vote, and all those kind of issues that the Biden campaign seemingly has not been addressing, focusing like a laser instead on the, moderate suburbs.
Well, then there's also the outreach strategy. If you're focusing on making sure you win Florida, you have to constantly your entire focus on Hispanic outreach is around how you're not a socialist. Okay,
which isn't applicable to Mexican American voters. Like they don't.
Ironically, to Mexican American voters, especially even to older Latino voters, who are overwhelmingly Catholic, right, and don't want, don't like abortions and whatnot, they still have they're still way more tolerant to socialized medicine than the way that white voters are. So Latino outreach in Texas is very unique in that way, where Republicans, from what I understand, have to make sure that they're not like overtly anti-immigrant, but then also on top of that, as far as I've seen, even in older Latino constituencies, like they are more interested in, they're not as fearful of big government programs like the capital owning, asset owning boomer Cubans are in Florida.
Right.
One thing I would say about Florida and Cubans in particular, in the United States, Cubans are overwhelmingly white Hispanics, which is not true of the island itself. So you're talking about 86% plus of Cubans in America are white Cubans, and they are so as a lot, whereas other nationalities, Hispanic immigrants come from more mixed backgrounds. So they're going to vote more similarly to other white Americans. It shouldn't surprise you that Cubans vote so much more conservative.
There's a multitude of different look, of course, there's that. There's colorism within the Latin American communities. Then there's also the fact that they have amnesty, they have refugee status because of their like political exile from Cuba, a country that America, like the American State Department, has declared a foreign enemy for in perpetuity. So they have that unique status. So they also have that same kind of consideration that like third generation Polish immigrants can have, or fourth generation Irish immigrants can have, because they're far removed from the consequences of being otherized and being pointed to as the enemy. So they literally look to other Latin American immigrants as they look at them in the same reactionary terms that most other conservatives look to them as. And that's where that comes from, certainly. And then also, the Democratic Party's mishandling of Cuban refugees, specifically, like under Bill Clinton. Like there's a bunch of different issues. There's a bunch of different reasons as to why they vote that way. But ultimately, the reason why I always use the Cuban vote is like different from the rest of the Hispanic outreach is to showcase how diverse it is, and to also explain to most people that like mainstream media especially still does not have a well-defined they don't have a good understanding of how Latin American voters vote in this country. It's not as monolithic as the black voting bloc is in regards to like voting for the Democratic Party, which also is now changing too, by the way, but that's a totally separate conversation to have. Okay. All right, well, let's move on to Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear from Mike, who has polled people in PA before. I don't know what your efforts have been in Pennsylvania this time around.
Well, I've kept my ear to the ground and talking to a lot of local
Okay, so you're saying you've just been too busy Twitch streaming. Got it. Okay, go on.
I haven't been just Twitch streaming, Hasan. Are you claiming I have Twitch brain now? Have you? Is that the accusation?
I have a fun story about Pennsylvania.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Scroll back out and go to Western Pennsylvania. There's a slight Democrat district that's favored to flip. That is the incumbent Aaron Bernstein. And if you look him up, you can pull up the video. Aaron Bernstein, he represents a pretty safe Republican seat. It's a district just north of Pittsburgh.
Slippery Rock.
Slippery Rock, yeah. That is a seat that Republicans should have held. But Aaron Bernstein sent a video of himself on Snapchat giving his 5-year-old son, teaching him how to hit a cigar. And do you know what the game is that has the labels FMK?
Fuck, marry, kill?
Yeah, so he was teaching another kid that. You can look it up. I mean, there are so many state legislators that are weird. The guy that ran over a dog, the guy that solicited prostitutes twice in a year while having an ongoing case, the lady that left a note on someone's car calling him a foreclosed loser in his mailbox because he left a note on her car for a bad parking job, and she saw that his home was being foreclosed on. Whole bunch of bizarre races, and that's the fun part about down ballot races, because it's not like congressional races where you have PR and everything. State legislators don't have that. Some of them are just insane and are incapable of carrying themselves with class. It's a few of them, but the behavior
is this based on polling, or is this kind of a gut that you have for this district?
So a big thing is the independent candidate in there, Jonathan Peffer, has a lot of union endorsements. He's got a lot of yard signs in there. The conservative vote there is going to be split. And so pretty much all the Democrat needs to do there.
Unions are backing the conservative
independent.
There's unions are backing the independent.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of unions in that district that are backing the independent. Some pretty sizable ones. The Pennsylvania GOP has also disavowed that incumbent for his behavior and demanded he resign. So pretty much all the Democrat there has to do is win the plurality of the vote, something like 36, 37% of the vote, maybe a little bit higher. But yeah, the conservative vote there is going to be split.
Why are the unions backing the independent instead of the Democrat?
I'm not that sure. I'm not sure why. All I know is that he's got a lot of yard signs, a lot of support, and the unions have endorsed him. I'm not sure why. There's 5,240 districts, and I try and get as much detail as I can. But if anyone in chat lives there, I'm looking at chat. If anyone lives there, Beaver Falls, Slippery Rock, something like that, let me know.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting race there. I don't know. Slippery Rock, I'm pretty sure, has a pretty conservative college there, right, chat? Isn't Slippery Rock University like a very
He's a CEO? Oh fuck. He's the CEO of Bullseye Technology. Maybe that's not him. I'm just looking at his LinkedIn.
His name is Jonathan Peffer.
Yeah, he's like bald. He's kind of jacked. He's bald and he's kind of jacked.
Yeah. And what's really funny? I was when I was looking at that race, I was going to this local Facebook page. You would love the amount of copium defending the Republican there.
That's kind of my belief. I gotta tell you that Republicans will just tend to vote straight ticket Republican. They don't give a crap what the person did.
That's not
about races. So that I'd be interested to ask you about is the only Republican in Philadelphia County, which is down there, District 170, which is Bensalem. See that town of Bensalem? Do you guys have a reason for this? Because this is like a Democrat seat, probably. I'd have to go and look and see exactly how much Hillary won it by, but I'm pretty sure Hillary won this seat, and you have it leaning R. Is there a reason for that? Or
yeah, the Republican, Hillary won that seat, not by a whole lot. She won it narrowly. The Republican won there by double digits, actually, in 2018. Even Pennsylvania Democrats are pretty pessimistic on that seat.
Okay, they don't know what they're talking about. They're idiots. Who cares what they say? Honestly, they were very pessimistic in 2018 about the Senate. And they punted 3 races. They said we're not anywhere close, and they were all within 2 points.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, are you
I
talking
mean,
about Ben Salem or which one are you talking about?
Yeah. The pink one that's like the salmon colored one that's west of Ben Salem.
the
one that looks like
lean,
a cloth,
it's
like
lean
a crab
Republican.
cloth.
Lean
That's the one.
Republican, Martina White versus Michael Doyle.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton won that seat. It's pretty Republican down ballot. In a large enough way, if you are seeing a big enough realignment between rural areas and suburban areas, that seat would flip. And, I will say that was something I underestimated in my 2018 predictions. I was too optimistic on Democrats in rural areas, too pessimistic and too optimistic on Republicans in suburban areas. But at the end of the day, we account for fundraising, statewide results. We look at, incumbency advantage or lack thereof. We look at the trends of the district.
She's only been there 2 terms. I know the seat very well so Martina's only been there for 2 terms. She got in a special election. Like, this is the one that I would definitely be watching if I were you.
Yeah. I think that could be a majority maker. Absolutely. Again, I think Bucks County is probably going to decide whether Democrats flip the House. Because you got 2 tilt Republican seats and 2 tilt Democrat seats and a lean Republican seat there. And in Bucks County, you also have Brian Fitzpatrick, one of the 3 Republicans who represents the district, 4 Republicans that represents the district that Hillary Clinton won in 2016, but held on in the 2018 midterms. So that's a race to watch. Bucks County, that's a very crucial county.
Yeah. The other district that I'd be watching would be just north. So you have Philadelphia, obviously, but then it goes north into the Lehigh Valley, which, as Hasan pointed out, this is one of the few places in Pennsylvania that's growing because of a large influx of Puerto Rican immigrants. Mm-hmm. This is actually, I think, the 3rd location for Puerto Rican immigrants after Hurricane Maria is Allentown, Bethlehem. It's a little bit north, Hasan.
I have no idea where it is, brother.
It's north, up, go up.
Oh,
go up.
I thought you said it was like right above.
No. Zoom out. It's
Allentown. There you go.
It's super gerrymandered. Yeah, there you go. That's the Lehigh Valley.
Allentown, Bethlehem, Lehigh Valley. That 131 district. That's like all upper middle class white suburbanites right there.
And that's an open seat.
It's an open seat as well. That's another.
We actually moved it from tilt Republican to lean Republican because the fundraising is pretty poor. Not to say that we entirely rely on fundraising or whatever. It's just one of the many factors. But that could also be a majority maker. The polling there in Lehigh Valley is pretty good for Democrats from what I've seen for Pennsylvania's 7th congressional district.
Yeah, that's one. Susan Wild. That was a flip from Republican to Democrat, and she's a supporter of Medicare for All. So that's one of the most targeted seats in the country. Also above her in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton is Matt Cartwright, who also supports Medicare for All. He represents Scranton, which is Joe Biden's hometown. So that's another super contested seat. He won it when Hillary lost by 15 points, and he won the district anyway. Just in case anybody ever says, can't do Medicare for All in Pennsylvania. The 2 most contested seats, the Democratic candidates support Medicare for All. That you might want to take notice of that. And they're not places that are full of necessarily the most diverse communities. These are especially Scranton. So just a little.
Hasan, I was seeing that you zoomed in on the Frackville. If you want to know the funniest or rather laziest name for a town in Pennsylvania, it's called State College. It's just called State College, and it's where a college is in central Pennsylvania.
That's
a lot of weird names.
Yeah, that's where Penn State is.
Yeah, I know. I've been to State College.
It's the direct center of Pennsylvania. That's where they put it.
It's kind of a lazy name.
They just put it.
I think Frackville is funnier, but no, I was looking at Hazelton or Hazeltown, however the fuck you say it.
It's Hazelton.
I always fucking say it wrong, and then everyone gets mad at me. I'm surprised at how red it is. Isn't that also a huge it used to be predominantly white. It used to be predominantly white, but now it's now it's supposed to have a huge immigrant population.
So if you see District 119, they pretty much and District 121 that are blue and dark blue. The Republicans, when they drew these districts in 2012, super packed Democrats wherever they exist. So you see all these jagged lines. Like these are all hyper gerrymandered to like minimize the number of Democrats. I think the Democrats won by 10 points of the popular vote in 2018 statewide for the state house, but yet they are not even that close to a majority because of how effective the gerrymander was.
That's the Wisconsin numbers were insane.
Same
Apparently,
thing with Wisconsin. Yeah.
yeah, they got like what 66% of the vote, but then Republicans held majority.
I think it's like they got 58 and they got 42 of the seats. 58% of the vote.
Thing is there. I mean, that's kind of bloated because of uncontested districts. Democrats would have absolutely won the popular vote there, though. But yeah, the Pennsylvania House would be a toss-up in our forecast, in our final forecast, if it weren't for gerrymandering.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But at the end of the day, we have Democrats gaining seats in the chamber, but we think Republicans are very slight favorites to hold it. You can see there are districts that Republicans are favored to flip are predominantly in rural areas, and the ones that Democrats are favored to flip are predominantly in suburban areas. And that's just kind of, a part of the realignment we're seeing between rural and suburban America. There are a few rural Democrats that, are prevailing because of the down ballot strength. But yeah, more and more we're seeing a, urban and rural divide.
It's actually even more like typically when you find these like random blue districts in the middle of nowhere, there is like a moderate sized town. Like it's really not even rural versus urban. It's like town versus rural.
Wait, really?
Yes, absolutely. Like if you go to Pennsylvania, like you zoom in and there'll be random like blue districts, and that's because there's a town.
Frank Burns of the light blue district in Johnstown. That guy held on while Tom Wolf, the governor of Pennsylvania, who's winning by re-election by 18 points.
18.
He lost that district by double digits, but the Democratic incumbent still held on narrowly. That guy, he shouldn't have held on, but Republicans don't really seriously contest him. So, there's a lot of intricacies in these down ballot races. If you look in that Southwest Pennsylvania district, that's a pretty heavy blue, likely Democrat. Pam Snyder, I think. Yeah, Pam Snyder. She's a pretty heavy favorite in re-election because that area likes down ballot Democrats. Yeah. And
one thing I'm concerned about with Pennsylvania is just the voting process itself. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, Hasan, today, or we could talk about it tomorrow, whenever.
No, we can talk about it tonight. We can talk about it right now. This is something that I was confused by as well. I originally thought that I thought that everywhere, like all the commissioners had, or they were going to start counting the mail-in ballots on the 4th, on the morning of the 4th, but it turns out it's only 7. And the 7 counties themselves are also deeply Republican, if I'm not mistaken. So isn't that a bit of a self-own for Donald Trump?
I mean, yes and no. The first problem we have is like there is a huge number of people who are probably going to get their ballots to arrive late. That's a big problem, right? They'll be postmarked by election day, but they arrive after election day. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court gave them an extension so that they would be counted, right? Because the process of counting will not be complete. And so they'll have like a grace period. And I believe this U.S. Supreme Court is going to throw those ballots out. The other issue is like there's a naked ballot problem, which I think everybody's been talking about for a while. But basically, when you mail in your ballot, you have a second envelope you have to put your ballot into to keep it, quote, secret. And if you forget to do that, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that vote should be thrown out. And we estimate that there are probably going to be around 100,000 Democrats who fail to use the secrecy ballot.
Really?
And
100,000?
Yeah. That could be enough for Trump.
Yeah, that could be enough to flip it for sure.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a clusterfuck. And I don't think Pennsylvania is going to get called till at least Thursday or Friday. Not necessarily from being close.
Yeah.
It's just they're not going to count the ballots. The other problem is...
Wait, hold on. Before we move on. Sorry, people are saying dumbass Democrats. No, guys, it's not because Democrats are dumb. It's a tactical decision. The reason why they add that secrecy ballot or the secrecy envelope or whatever the fuck it's called is literally so they can purge 100,000 votes. it's not because Democrats are stupid. It's just that Democrats are overwhelmingly voting by mailed-in ballots, and that's the reason why they do this. Just like in places like in Alabama and Tennessee, they have you sign with 2 witnesses or get your vote notarized if you want to send it by mail. And the reason for that is so that they can apply selective enforcement. That's now not just 1 signature check, but 3 signature checks that they can apply so they can purge your vote. Now you have tripled the likelihood that, or the likelihood that you can purge someone's vote. It's not done for election integrity or election security. Obviously, these sorts of little hurdles are placed in front of people because it's a calculation. It's like if 40,000 Republican votes are lost because for every 10 Democrats that are casting a mail-in ballot, then 4 Republicans are, then that's fine. That's enough for them to potentially etch out a marginal victory in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and the one thing to keep in like Democrats and Republicans fail to use the privacy envelope at the same rate. It's just that Democrats are going to overwhelmingly vote by mail, and Republicans are going to overwhelmingly vote in person. So any decision you make that's against mail-in ballots is going to disproportionately hurt the Democrats.
Yeah.
And this is true of the entire country. And this is actually the strategy that the Republicans seem to be pursuing, especially in Pennsylvania, which is do everything they can to block late arriving mail ballots, do everything they can to find technical reasons to spoil a ballot. And, you know, the Philadelphia election clerk wrote a letter to the Pennsylvania state legislature saying, we don't give a shit about privacy ballots. We're opening so many envelopes with machines that it doesn't matter to us. We don't have time to like see who you're voting for. That's just not how it works.
Well, if it was actually about protecting the voter itself and anonymity, they would do it like they do it in Oregon, where it's optional and not mandatory. The reason why it's mandatory is specifically so they can, just like you pointed out, purge 100,000 fucking votes, potentially 100,000 Democratic votes, because Democrats are overwhelmingly voting by mail. That's absolutely the reason.
And so I'm not trying to panic everyone, but you know, Trump won by like 30-some thousand votes last time.
You're trying to turn everyone into a doomer, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, just be aware, like, you know, I hope we don't have to rely on Pennsylvania, because if we do, then it's going to be a clusterfuck.
Okay, so here's the point though. Here's the thing. Even if it's not 100,000 votes, right? It doesn't matter. The point is that Republicans always end up etching out these marginal victories for themselves, despite the fact that they have less people voting for the Republican Party overall, as demonstrated in the 2000 election, where they literally did steal the election in Florida, as you all famously know, and also in 2016, where they didn't have to do the same processes, but like, you know, the built-in voter suppression is already so powerful that they didn't really need to, and they still won with the Electoral College. So that's basically why they're doing all this stuff, and it's understandable to be concerned, because one, there is potential margin of error always, right? Even if pollsters have corrected for the mistakes of 2016 in the way that they weighted, non-college educated people versus college educated white voters and everyone else, there's still always going to be polling errors, specifically, as both of you guys already mentioned, when you calculate the Latino turnout or when you calculate the Hispanic vote overall, and even in I think black voter turnout as well, especially in the Midwest. Maybe not so much in the South, but beyond that, there's always additional voter suppression methods that they apply so that they can, even in blowout districts or even in states where there's an overwhelming majority of people voting blue, they can make that race as close as possible, so they can potentially contest it or even win in certain circumstances, like in Texas, for example.
We now have a YouTube channel, ! YouTube. Look how many new videos have been posted. 5 new videos. They're all between 8 and 25 minutes. Perfect videos. Get in there, like, comment, subscribe. Hit the YouTube subscription button. What are you doing?